The Polish GROM is a Tier 1 Premier Special Forces unit. The operators of this unit have gained the nickname the Surgeons, due to their extensive medical knowledge and training, along with their surgical-like ability to coordinate and execute special operations. Originally, GROM was modelled from a number of NATO Special Forces units, including the US Delta Force, the Navy SEALs Team 6, and the British SAS. Looking back to the 1970s and 80s, there were several formations of special units within Poland, but these were either trained purely in anti-terrorist operations or military assignments, such as espionage and interfering with enemy communications. In 1989, a general proposed that a special response team be established to counter the threat from terrorism and other unconventional dangers after the Polish embassy in Bern, Switzerland, was taken over by terrorists. GROM stands for something that I probably shouldn't even attempt to pronounce. Basically, it translates to Group for Operational Maneuvering Response, and is one of the 5 special operations units of the Polish Armed Forces. The unit was named after the Silent Unseen, Poland's elite World War II Special Operations Unit. Candidates applying to serve in GROM have to pass psychological and durability tests, along with the so-called Truth Test, a physically and psychologically exhausting field test designed to filter out the weaker applicants. GROM soldiers train with the best special operations units in the world. It was officially activated on July 13, 1990. Approximately 75% of GROM personnel are trained as medics or paramedics. In addition, each group is supported by several professional physicians. With the reactivation of Team Rainbow in 2015, 2 GROM operators were recruited to assist in the war on terrorism on a global scale. These operators were Zofia and Ella.
I decide when to restrain and when to kill. Only the best call the shots.
Zofia Bosak is an attacking operator in Team Rainbow. She is the eldest daughter of a former GROM commander, and during her childhood she lived comfortably in Wrocław, Poland. When she was 10 years old, her father resigned from his role in the GROM in order to become the Minister of Internal Affairs following the assassination of Poland's president. From a very young age, Zofia underwent strict military training led by her father, as he has high hopes in her fulfilling his legacy. At times she had a natural desire in wanting to rebel against her father and choose her own path, yet she found immense comfort in his simple, black and white philosophy and saw the benefits to his systematic way of life. Zofia's desire to become a GROM specialist first arose while attending the funeral of the Polish president. Looking across the room, she was in awe of these individuals. They seemed to radiate a sense of presence and prestige among all others. Her lifelong ambition eventually became a reality when she qualified to join GROM. In order to fully understand Zofia and her psyche, it's important to look at the impact others have played on her own personal growth and how she chose to deal with it. On a school trip to the Mazurian Lake District, Zofia was the victim of a disturbing prank that almost cost her life. While swimming alone in the lake, a group of 3 boys from her class came upon her and proceeded to take turns trying to drown her, just for fun. In relation to this violent and life-threatening experience, she developed a marked and deep mistrust of others. With this terrifying event, unbeknownst to her teachers or any other adults, she then had to continue to sit beside those same boys in class, thereafter feeling helpless and afraid. To deal with her increasing anxiety, she decided to push her training even further than before, to ensure that she could protect herself in the future. Her father readily agreed to show her more ruthless techniques, given only as long as she continued to never question his methods. The next morning, he led Zofia to the shooting range, where he had 2 stray dogs leashed to a target post. He explained to her that decision will determine the rest of your life, and that any true leader has to learn to make the hard ones quickly. One of the 2 dogs was sick, and Zofia must end its suffering, but which one? He was forcing her to make a quick calculated decision, based on very little information. It wasn't about teaching her right from wrong, it was about the skills she needed to learn in order to survive. Zofia's eyes locked onto her chosen target, and she pulled the trigger. With the firing of her gun, a heavy weight seemed to lift off her chest, and she caught a glimpse of how strong in the future she would become. Among Zofia's most notable exploits with GROM was a rescue operation in Guatemala, codenamed Red Agatha. A tropical storm had formed a sinkhole in the middle of the city, swallowing an entire neighborhood, and Zofia was deployed to protect the team of engineers examining the perimeter. On this particular day, she'd been carrying out her duties as normal, when suddenly the land beneath her began to collapse. Looking rapidly around, she noticed a young child alone, with fear in her eyes. Without a second thought, Zofia threw her onto her back. As the youngster clung desperately to her shoulders, the earth fell out beneath her feet. Throwing herself at the edge of the unbroken ground, she managed to claw at the ledge with her bare hands, and for the next half hour, she clung to the precipice. Over time, Zofia managed to forge a number of friendships while overseas, and eventually some of those people became like a second family to her. Far away from her father's brutal training, and with the loyalty and kindness of others, she began to let down her walls and trust her teammates. It was in the midst of a rogue mission in Mali that she met her now husband during an operation where they both mistook each other for hostiles. Not long after their first encounter, they became engaged and decided on a small wedding ceremony back in Poland. But her father, who assumed he was naturally involved in the organising of his daughter's wedding, chose to ignore her wishes and instead opted for a large, lavish event. Among the invitees were a number of powerful politicians who had seized control around the time of the previous Polish president's death. Amid the congressmen, she noticed two former suspects in the ex-president's assassination, and to her disgust, her father warmly embraced them. Zofia had seen enough, and she quickly left the party with her husband. The actions at her wedding played heavily on her mind. She began to investigate further what she had seen, and why her father could allow himself to be caught up with such allies. Though, her inquest was put on hold not long after she began, as she discovered she was pregnant, and decided to take early maternity leave. While her husband remained working, she moved back home with her father and kept her pregnancy hidden. Sadly, before she was able to inform him, he died under suspicious circumstances. Motherhood had a profound effect on Zofia, and almost immediately after her daughter was born, the need to bring her sister Ella closer was ignited. She felt the pull of responsibility and yearned to keep her loved ones safe, but Ella ignored her attempts to reconnect. After hearing her sister had passed the selection for GROM as a civilian, Zofia returned back to work. Her squadron noticed this change, and witnessed the efforts she made with her sister. They pondered amongst themselves if this recent disposition was a remnant of grief, or something more. When Ella accepted the prestigious offer to join Team Rainbow, Zofia saw no reason to stay behind. Everything about GROM reminded Zofia of her father. She used her contacts to reach Six personally, who agreed to meet her in Geneva, and Zofia joined Team Rainbow 3 months later. In the younger days, on the rare occasion that Zofia was home alone with her sister, she would teach Ella a number of advanced, non-lethal techniques and introduce her to concussion grenades. These secret lessons between them were a way for Zofia to reach out to her sister, who was markedly struggling during high school. While her father's training made Zofia most comfortable with hand-to-hand combat and precision shooting, she discovered in the GROM the kind of specialist she wanted to be. Favouring aggressive strikes, she volunteered to test the trial KS-79 Lifeline, a double-barrel grenade launcher, originating from an Italian R&D program. The KS-79 Lifeline makes use of electronically triggered projectile technology that can fire both concussion and impact ammunition. Since multiple grenades are superposed in the gun barrel, reloading magazines is no longer necessary, resulting in unmatched efficiency. The concussion ammunition delivers a 170 decibel shockwave that impairs hearing and causes a dizzying effect. The impact ammunition bulldozes walls in an instant.
It's a brutal, dangerous world out there. But I found my way. Chaos is my home. And I'll make sure you never escape it.
Elizbieta Bosak is a defending operator in Team Rainbow. Nicknamed Ella, this highly driven 30-year-old has had a unique progression. Having quickly risen among Poland's special forces, she was deployed in 6 countries and active in Iraq for 7 years. Her accomplishments come as no surprise, considering that she is the youngest daughter of a former commander of Poland's counter-terrorism unit, GROM. But despite this legacy, Ella is not the classic soldier you'd expect. Originally from Wrocław, Ella's family history has deep roots within the city. Her grandfather was an elite paratrooper of the exiled Polish army during World War II. After being captured during the Wrocław uprising, he managed to escape, only to endure a 3-month-long siege. Through his tales of war, he cultivated her defiant spirit and taught her how much higher damage is done by striking a supply chain than by neutralizing a man. These invaluable lessons made her an exceedingly smart and productive counter-IED operator. However, she initially struggled with a strict military lifestyle. As a teenager, Ella experienced a number of difficulties while attending military high school because she was the daughter of a former GROM commander. Her records mention an undisclosed incident 6 months before her graduation, which led to her expulsion. From here she had a brief stint in another academy before her lack of attendance caused her to be transferred again, this time to a small local high school where she eventually graduated. Shortly after her graduation, Ella left Poland and travelled to Berlin, as she believed it was time to experience life on her own terms. While there she studied the fine arts, although soon the appeal of her old life began to creep up on her. When Ella made an acquaintance with the owner of a small private military company, over time she was eventually offered a job. Craving adventure, along with financial independence, she accepted, and hoped that her role as a contractor would differ from the stringent lifestyle that she experienced within military academy. During her first years of deployment in Iraq, she gained quite the reputation in the field. Known to possess an impressive range of abilities, her attitude was the only obstacle standing in her way. While she was seen as a valuable asset to any squad, her employers monitored her closely because of a number of reports regarding her authority issues. Sadly, after a rough operation in Baghdad, she received the news that her father had taken his own life. Some months after her father's death, Ella decided to terminate her contract and began training relentlessly in order to pass the GROM selection as a civilian. In her eyes, joining her late father's unit was her way of keeping his memory close and make amends for her past. Thoroughly impressed by her determination and aptitude in the field, the Polish forces took her on, and among the GROM, she developed an expertise in countering threat networks and helped design advanced methods to extract intel on a target's objectives and supply routes. One of her most notable ventures is Operation Orange Sky, where joined by Valkyrie, SEAL's intel expert, Ella spent months infiltrating a warlord's inner circle before dismantling his network, without harming a single civilian. Her partnership with SEAL proved so effective that she was tracked down by Team Rainbow. Inspired by the 1939 anti-tank Polish grenades, used by the iconic silent unseen paratroopers during World War II, the sticky mines could be anchored on surfaces, impairing hearing and causing a dizzying effect. These concussion mines are triggered upon proximity, affecting anyone within its radius. This non-lethal explosive was specifically adapted to Ella, who was known to isolate targets from the local population to sabotage IED operations. Hey guys, thank you very much for all of the suggestions over which ones I should be covering next. Unfortunately, there are a number that don't have too much story behind them. It may be that this hasn't been released yet when the others were done, or they may never be updated. I'll keep an eye on them for now and see if they change. Anyway, if you've made it this far, thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers!